This is Peter Deppe, General Manager of VESPA, and I'm here today at the starting line of the Western States 100. It's Thursday afternoon. The race is starting on Saturday, and I have with me a couple of our VESPA R&D team athletes. Peter Mortimer, winner of the 2022 HURT 100, second at Cocodona, the inaugural Cocodona in 2021. And then a lot of people in the ultra running world knows 50 years young, Jeff Bronco Billy Browning, who's been killing, ever since he drank the Kool-Aid, the Vespa Kool-Aid, he's been winning and doing well.
Hey, I was winning before that.
Yeah.
I'm just winning with less inflammation. With a happier gut.
Yeah, and you're an older athlete who's keep doing it, and that's
yeah.
One of the things we didn't talk about in the OFM talk is like you see all these athletes who are on high carb diets, and most of them are 2, 3, 4 seasons, and then they're injury plagued and out.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's talk about. We're here to talk a little bit about VESPA, and VESPA is a natural catalyst, and it's composed of honey, propolis, royal jelly, and the wasp extract peptide, and then ascorbic or acid or citric acid or orange juice is the pH buffer to make it safe, because it's actually a food product. It's not a supplement. It's actually the FDA recognizes it as a food product. And so it's completely natural. You don't need a PhD in organic chemistry or food science to understand what's in it. And it's a catalyst to help bump your fat metabolism up, because fat really is your fuel. And I really challenge you to step back from this carbohydrate-centric way of thinking. And it's not that they don't play a role, but the fact that you are meant to burn fat as your aerobic energy source for the majority of your work. And then use those carbohydrates, those gels, those shot blocks, those waffles, the liquid nutrition, as that sort of performance rocket fuel to give you that best performance. And so VESPA, puts you on that real stable platform. And one of the key things that people kind of get confused with VESPA is that you don't have to do a ketogenic or low carb diet or a high fat diet. You don't have to do a thing. All you need to do is start using VESPA, and it's sort of a really good first step to get introduced to what fat metabolism is all about, by tapping into your onboard limitless energy. So I've got Jeff and Peter here, and they're going to talk a little bit about their experience with VESPA and how they use VESPA, and some examples of how they coach people using VESPA and the experience, the feedback they get. So who wants to go first?
It's your turn.
Yeah.
So I've been using VESPA since 2017. I was trying to change have a metabolic shift, and VESPA was one of the products that Peter Deppe introduced me to. And it's been a total game changer for me as far as the amount of calorie intake that I'm doing. I'm a fat adapted athlete, so I'm using it in conjunction with that. I have been on races where I've given it to some of my athletes too as a bump, as we talked about right before this podcast started. And it's really, you don't get that like complete like up and down feeling when it's very subtle. I mean, it's got 18 calories and 5 grams of carbs, and
people don't know how it works because they think
right.
I think that's an important piece to get across, is the use case of this product that is not used like a normal gel, like every 20 or 40 minutes or something. Like a lot of people use energy products during endurance exercise. So the way I use it personally, and the way I think Peter uses it very similarly, and that is every 2 hours as a supplement to your normal carbohydrate drip of like what carbs you're doing during a long run or race. And that's a different use than, I think that's where people get a little confused on how to use it, or just using it before of.
Yeah, and I think it's also like a lot of people I've seen this with people who look at VESPA and they'll flip it over and look at the nutrition panel and they'll see the 18 calories, and you can see them like they just can't understand it. So you have to step back and realize it's not the calories in the pouch. I'll get a pouch here right now.
It's not a supplement for nutrition.
It's not the calories in the pouch. It's the calories here, right here. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's helping you tap into a higher fat oxidation rate, and at least in our preliminary studies, that's what we're seeing in the lab, that we're seeing increase in fat oxidation rates, and so.
Yeah, we're not talking about small incremental increases. We're talking about real game-changing.
Yeah, like 10 to 40%.
It shifts the paradigm to where the fueling equation changes fundamentally.
Yeah, and I think that's an important piece to get across, that it is used as a, in a little different way than gels, and it doesn't replace your current approach.
Yeah.
So talk about this whole thing about what you notice and what you don't notice.
Yeah. So, well, one of the first things, I mean, if I'm going into a race or on a long run, for example, I generally take, I like the CV25.
And the concentrates.
Concentrate, yeah. It's I take one of those about an hour before my workout. By the time I get to that starting line, I can already feel it like in my system. Like I'm just amped, ready to go. Part of that is probably adrenaline too, but at the same time, I just feel like I have like this abundant amount of energy. And
it's stable energy.
It is stable,
it's
yeah.
It's not that up and down.
Yeah, it's not a peak and valley type of energy.
And then I'm taking it about every other hour. And then those other hours, I'm generally introducing my regular nutrition in. So I like to alternate it. That's what's worked best for me. But a lot of my long runs when I go out, I'll bring my regular nutrition with me, but most of the time, you
end up not using all your nutrition. I get back from long runs, and I'm like, I still have like 3 gels on me, and a couple blocks, and like I ate 2 little blocks, and a gel maybe, and then I had Vespa and a little bit of IV drip of like liquid calories.
Yep.
But like 100 calories an hour a lot of times in training, where I feel like I just don't feel any blow, so I don't need any more.
I've gone out for 4 or 5 hours at a time, and with just 2 of these things.
And that's fasted, right?
Yeah, fasted. Just going off the food from the night before, and then again I always have the calories with me just in case. I start to, I get some high intensity stuff going. But that's pretty much it. I mean, people I think will kind of look at the cost sometimes, and they get a little scared because they're
comparing with a one-on-one.
Right. They're comparing it with like another gel that's on the market
that you're going to take every 30 to 45 minutes.
Right. But when you start taking that out of the equation, and you're not taking as much as that regular nutrition, it really does kind of equal itself out.
Yeah, in terms of cost. Yeah.
Right.
And then when you add in the health/recovery benefits, the damage prevention.
Right. Yep. Not shoving glucose down your body every 30 to 40 minutes. Less inflammation. Yep. Better turnover.
Yeah, and I think another place I found, just based on the testing, because we've done a lot of VO2 max testing on this with this product, and then on Vespa, I've been always consistently in all of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tests. I don't know now. A lot of tests. It's always the same. I'm always able to push a little harder, higher VO2 max. And push harder at the end at high end. And so one of the ways I've been using the product as well is in my normal training. So if I'm going to go out for, say, a lunch workout that's going to be like, say, 5 by 4 minutes or 4 by 8 minutes at like tempo pace or something like that after a warm up, I will take a CV25 before I go out the door, and that'll be what I'm using as my race as my quality session nutrition, and it helps me I know I'm going to be able to push a higher VO2 max and a higher high end. So I'll use it that way. Or if I'm going to go out and do like a 2-hour run and I don't want to carry calories, I'll just take like a CV25, and I might carry 1 Vespa, like a lot like Pete does, and then all I have to do is carry a little salt and water, like carry Succeed caps and water and like a handheld, and like go super light, and you feel great, and you don't have to carry anything. You don't have to be worried like popping a gel or taking extra food with you and finding pockets to put it in. It's like, these little guys, if I open this up, I mean, they're like smaller than a gel packet.
Yeah,
I mean, they're
super light.
They're super tight. They're tiny. My only tip is to bring a little Ziploc for trash, because they do have a little honey in them, so that it gets sticky and leaks a little after you take some. There's always a little left in the package. So
I've actually had like bees chase me down. Like had them sitting in my pack, like opened up, and
I know I've had that happen too. On that note, I'll go to the thing after, but one of the things that I've noticed, and you guys probably noticed, if you're doing a fairly low key run, you can go all day on Vespa salt and water.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can.
It gets stupid. You can go out fasted, or a coffee with cream, a bulletproof coffee, or coffee with cream, or tea with cream, and just go stupid amount of hours on just trickle.
Another interesting side note that I have come across is that I have a couple boxes of the Vespa Junior, which is the less each one of these in order is like the most wasp extract, the middle, and that's the least.
Yeah, the ultra
170.
Yeah, the ultra
right?
concentrate is just like taking this and this together in
Yep.
terms of the wasp extract.
Yeah, so
It's ultra concentrate.
so one of the things I have a very energetic 11-year-old boy who likes to run. We're in run club together. I also have a 19-year-old son who used to be a competitive USA climber, like bouldering and indoor rock lead climbing. And we started with Vespa Juniors on my 15-year-old son, who's now 19, when he was competing in USA climbing. And he noticed a difference because one of the things with climbing, it takes a lot of concentration because it's blind. You're blind to the route. So you come out of isolation. You can't face the wall, and then you have 4 minutes. 4 minutes to complete the route in bouldering. So they say, they buzz it. You turn around and you get a second to look at the route, and then you have to try to nail it. And he noticed a huge difference on Vespa versus just by himself, sipping on something else. And so he always would take one of those, and he got to the point where he was asking me, Dad, I need a Vespa. I'm getting ready I need a Vespa, And so I went ahead and used that experience to use it on my son, who would have on and off days when we go to my younger son to go run at Run Club, because it depends on what he ate for lunch. Did he eat a good lunch? Did he kind of snack? And it was always at 4:00 in the afternoon when you have that crash in the afternoon, right? And so he would have little crashes, and he would just have a bad attitude, and he just wouldn't really be into the Run Club thing. And I'd be coaxing him, he'd take a lot of walk breaks, and I started just giving him a Vespa Junior. And before we head out, on the way, drive over to the Run Club, and he would be on every single time I give him a Vespa, without fail. There was never a time when and he's gotten to the point where he notices it, and so he's like, Dad, it's automatic for him. Go get a Vespa Junior. We got to get a water bottle with some electrolytes, and we head to Run Club. And he drinks it on the way over, consumes it on the way over. 15 minutes before we get there, or 20 minutes before we're going to run, and he's on. He is on. It's awesome to watch. And I've seen it, in both my boys, in their respective sports, in two different sports. And I use it myself. There's been times when I've been fasting or something, and I've got maybe an intermittent fast or something because I ate junk the day before, and I'll use a Vespa as a a CV25 as something to mix into my fast.
That's right.
To make me be able to fast a little longer if I'm really busy and it's I don't have time to eat right now.
You can focus on your work because your focus is there.
Yeah, because it's bumping up, at least in our studies, it's showing it's bumping up fat oxidation.
Yeah, a lot of people do notice the focus and the coordination, like Jeff with your son who was competitively climbing, and this is because...
Yeah, because it's a mental thing too.
Right, because you become what I call blood sugar stable, and having that stable blood sugar is key to mental focus and fine motor skills, because if you're doing something like climbing or figure skating, the 2002 Winter Olympic men's figure skating champion, he trained and performed on Vespa. And these moves, you start to lose your fine motor skills before you even notice your fatigue. So that drop in blood sugar, so when you have your liver just kicking out that fat oxidation, the ketones, the glucose, you stay stable, so you can have that mental acuity to make the moves and stay. And I even have attorneys who use it for depositions during court, or surgeons, orthopedic surgeons who are going to be in long surgeries and have used it because they say it just keeps them in that zone. And like what you're saying with Abraham and his running, it's interesting you say that, because last year I took my two kids on a vacation to the east side of the Sierras, and over the course of the week they got more and more fat adapted with me and all that, And on the last day, we did a 6-mile hike at the Bristlecone Pine, the Methuselah Loop of the Bristlecone Pine National Monument. And this is at 10,000 feet. And they were fasted, and they had Vespa. I gave them each ounce concentrate. And we ran and hiked that whole thing on that and a couple of Jolly Ranchers and Bit of Honeys. And then we ate at like 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
And these are little kids, like 5.
Man, they should be having a full meltdown. I have 3 kids, man. If they melt down from food, not have enough food, like you can tell sometimes when they just need calories. Like that, I mean, it's just like the world is coming to an end. Yeah. My blood sugar is tanking, and it isn't a good scene. And nothing works. Nothing works until you put food in their mouth.
Right, but you've noticed with Abraham, it's like
boom. He could be like, oh, he didn't eat well for lunch, for example. Like if my wife homeschools, so there's times when they're like, he's being a little bit of a pain in the butt, and he's still doing school all the way into the afternoon when he should be done at noon, and if he buckle down. And so sometimes she's like, well, I haven't really fed him that much because he's being such a pain in the rear today, and we've done extra school to, it's been slow to catch up. And there's times when he'll literally, I just give him a Vespa and he's fine. Yeah. So it's been cool. I've seen it that way too.
Yeah, so. And when I've paced people too, I've always brought
carry extra.
Exactly.
Me too. It'll bring people back.
It brings people back, and especially if they're having problems getting nutrition down. And
that's one of the things I would say. I think you bring up an awesome point. I think we should call it the Vespa Challenge, because what you do is you carry a couple of Vespa in your pack, and if you have a rough patch in a long ultra, that's when you take the Vespa.
Yeah.
I guarantee it will turn you around. I've had people on long training adventure days where they've been blowing up, like friends, and I'd just be like, dude, take this, give them a concentrate, and in 15 minutes they're passing me running up a hill.
Yep.
They're like motoring. He's like, what's in that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, you're burning your fat stores right now, bro.
Yeah. You don't have to rely on just regular nutrition that they're not going to be able to keep down anyway. And then just give them a little bump, and then like brings them back. And
I think that's a good point, because Nick Curry brought that up in our testing. Is that's where he feels like it shines, is that's when he first was attracted to it, is someone had given him one and he was having a rough patch at like mile 40 of something, or 35 of like a 50 miler, and he was like, well, they said it would work, and he took one, and he was like, all of a sudden he felt great, and he had a great second half, and it's like, yeah, that's where it really shines.
Really horrible conditions.
Yeah, bad conditions where he couldn't actually get his nutrition because he had cold hands.
He had to resort to the Vespa because he couldn't eat.
He actually had it's kind of a funny story. He actually had a aid station volunteer open a CV25, the cap, and pour it in his mouth because his hands were so cold he couldn't get anything. He couldn't open gels. He couldn't use his nutrition. It was in his pockets, but he couldn't use them.
Yeah.
So it's a great story.
Yeah.
It's a great kind of testimonial for how Vespa works.
If you're a first time user of Vespa, like I said, you don't need to change a thing, except that, like what Nick was saying, if you look at Nick's testimonial, he said one of the problems he had, he was just trying to use his regular nutrition, which is cram a lot of calories in you. He said I realized I had to cut it way down. And what I usually recommend is people start by using the Vespa, and if they're taking in 200 calories, bring it down to 100. Cut it by 50, and then titrate it up or down.
But a lot of people are pushing 300 plus, and
I know.
And it's so hard. You can't really absorb much more than 260 or 270 calories an hour running if you're exercising. So I maybe a little more on a bike, or hiking, you can do more.
Or there's science to show you can train your gut to absorb more.
Yeah, the train the gut, man. You still get GI stress, because I would have what most people in ultra running would call an iron gut. Like I would, like we've talked about in previous segments. I 60 to 70 gels in 100, and I could down them and I wouldn't throw up, but I would have GI stress the last 30 miles. I definitely had like garbage gut, where you're like, man, I feel like stuff's not absorbing because you got too much. At some point, the blood's everywhere else and it's not in the gut, and the body's going, I can't do anything with this, so it says...
Not just the body can't do anything with it, because the body can't do anything, it starts to ferment in your gut.
Right, because it's a bunch of sugar.
Yeah. So it's a beer, it becomes a beer brewing factor.
And then you're like, why do I feel so bad? And then that's why if someone throws up at mile 70 sometimes, they're like, oh, I feel so much better, because you just got rid of all fermented glucose.
That's right.
That's like sitting in your gut.
And that's the thing. It's like, so if you're using Vespa,
broiling,
you start by cutting way back on your calories. Don't eliminate them, but cut them back. I suggest 50%, and then you can go up or down. We find
Yeah, but find if it works at 50, and then you can kind of bump it back up if you need a little more.
for racing, or you can go down. I mean, I've had people run competitive hundreds. Like one guy in 2015 came in second at Umstead. I think he ran 15 hours, 13 minutes. He's a tall guy like you and me.
Yeah.
Less than 600 calories in race.
Yeah.
And he didn't even eat. He was so dialed in, like you said, you're finished. He didn't even eat till the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, during Cocodona last year, during the heat, I mean, I think I took in less than 1,200 calories my first 100 miles. And a lot of that was like heat stress, but I was taking Vespa the entire time and then just relying on a little bit of liquid calories just to get me through
electrolytes. The only thing that
electrolytes.
held you back was the hydration and the heat, that first part where they got
Right.
cooked.
Yep. And then once my body started getting readapting, I was able to take in the normal calories, and then it was
Like
game.
at night when it was cold,
Yep.
et cetera.
Yeah, then it was game on. So
Yeah, so, and I think it's important to notice, like I said, what you notice is what you don't notice, and you guys know that you just feel your steady, natural.
It is kind of subtle. I would say that, like, one of the things, the early days before we started doing testing on it, Jesse Haynes and I used to always just, when we go run together, we would trade notes on Vespa and be like, I feel like there's something there, but you feel like there's something there? Yeah, I feel like there's something there. But you couldn't really put your finger on it. It was very subtle, like steady energy. And that's the fat oxidation, right?
Yeah.
But like a higher fat oxidation rate, you're just burning your natural fat stores.
And
But
your blood sugar stable.
and then when we first started doing testing and had a couple tests, and I called Jesse and I was like, dude,
The shit works.
yeah, it works. We're seeing data. This is definitely like bumping up fat oxidation rate. That's what you're feeling. That's what the subtle feeling is a bump in fat oxidation rate. And I think that's the important thing to get across too is that's what you're feeling. It's a bump in fat oxidation rate, which keeps you stable energy, stable blood sugar, and then you just need a low IV drip of calories, whether that's a gel, whether that's blocks, whether that's liquid calories.
Even a piece of candy.
Yeah, a piece of candy, even like diluted Coke in a bottle, like simple stuff, whatever works for you. Like you got to figure out what works for you. Everyone's a little different, like I know you use Spring Energy, I use Goo, gels and Goo Roctane powder, and I just do like a little over 100 calories in one bottle. And that's my baseline. That's always a constant when I'm on long runs, when I'm on races. And then the other stuff just in addition. If I'm going to push a little hard, I might pop a gel. If I got a big climb, I might strategically pop a gel. I eat a little fruit at the tables, and I keep it really, really simple. I try to keep to simple carbohydrates. I don't do much protein and fat during the race. And I think that's one thing that a lot of quote, fat adapted athletes make a mistake of doing is saying, oh, because I'm fat adapted, I need to eat fat during my long run or my race. And you don't need fat because that's just going to...
You don't want fat.
No, you don't want fat and protein, not very much. Strategically here and there you can. I always tell my athletes, like coach, 3 to 5 hours. In a 3 to 5 hour window, every 3 to 5 hours you can have a little bit of protein or fat if you're craving that or you want something different.
If you're doing something like 100.
Yeah, like 100 or 200 or something like that. You can add it in. But if you're, you don't have to. You could go just on liquid, if you needed to.
right.
Yeah, if you're doing a big mountain 100 or something, then a little bit of protein and fat.
Well, I think that's where it really shines too. Fat adaptation combined with Vespa, you can get through the heat of the day, like the hot races, with hardly any calories coming in. Because that's the hardest part during the heat in a hot race like Western States. We're sitting here at the starting line of Western States, and I think that's something we always talk about is can you consume calories in the heat? And the cool thing about being fat adapted and Vespa, you just take some Vespa and light calories, and especially liquid calories in the heat of the day. You don't need very much per hour. Your gut isn't because all the blood everywhere else is trying to cool you. It's trying to, you're sweating like crazy. So I think that's where it shines as well.
Yeah, we've had 3 different people win Badwater on Vespa. Zach Ingrich, once or twice, and then Michele Graglia won it in the hottest year on record, and then the next year the guy who set the record, Japanese guy, was using Vespa, and that was the coolest year. He set the course record.
Wow.
And
it was like 7-something minute miles, wasn't it, for 135 miles?
Yeah, and the thing is it really like in the
that course record's sick, by the way. I just drove through Death Valley on the way here. I'd never been through it. I've always told everyone that everyone was like, I've been in the sports for so long, and everyone's like, you ever think about doing Badwater? I'm like, no, my immediate answer is always like, heck no. I would rather run every other trail race in the world before I run that race. But now that I drove through Death Valley and saw like 75% of the course, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Like,
if it wasn't on asphalt, I would do it. If it wasn't on asphalt,
I'm just intrigued by it's a hillier course than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Like driving it, you're like, whoa, this thing's legit. You throw heat, you put 120-degree heat on that, 130-degree heat.
It's a challenge.
Yeah,
It's
got some big passes in it.
But that's the thing is like Vespa and Fat Adaptation is a secret weapon in the heat. It's just because you can get by on a lot less external calorie intake.
And it's a great triage tool when you're having that like late race rough pity party. Like I actually have gotten to the point where instead of every 2 hours, I actually will bump my Vespa concentrates, or I'll add in CV25s when I see crew or at drop bags on top of my every 2 hour concentrate drip, just to give me a bump in the second half. Yep. And I feel a lot. You actually helped me with that because one of the Western states, you just. I didn't even ask for it, but you just unscrew a CV25 and go drink this when I was at a crew spot, and I just down it at Duncan Canyon. I think we did it maybe at Dusty Corners, and we did it at Forest Hill, and I had a great race that year. And
you cleaned house on. You ran the fastest split.
Was that 2019? Yeah, it was 2019. Yeah, I still have the fastest split on Strava from Forest Hill for the finish.
But
for ninth.
Once again, if you're new to Vespa, this is the thing: is it's going to give you that taste of what your natural energy is all about. And a lot of people, once they get hooked on that, they're asking for more, and that's where the OFM comes in, and both Peter. And
because you can really manipulate it to a deeper level with your lifestyle diet. But I mean, you don't have to do any changes initially. I think it shines for the people who are more traditional, what we'd call carbohydrate burners, as their primary fuel source and glycogen, and so it helps with that fat oxidation rate, and they get a better bump. So let's say I get a 10% bump, but my baseline is 2 grams a minute, right? That's not the same as someone who's a half a gram a minute, and then they get a 10% bump.
They go up to a gram a minute. Also, they double their fat oxidation.
Yeah, they get a lot more.
And that's definitely a paradigm shift.
Yeah, you'll notice the difference. Yeah. So
it's really important. And we've got some data on that. You can go to the Vespa Power site, and you'll get a pop-up. They'll say, look at the metabolic testing. We're going to do more. We're going to do it on various athletes. But like I said, if you're new to this concept and you're doing a high carb, the other thing we want to talk about is the health benefits, because burning a lot of glucose, carbs are sugar, and your body breaks it down to glucose to fuel you, and this is one of the big things that we, all three of us, have had that epiphany on, is like, if you're doing a lot of sugar, you're going to destroy yourself. And like I said, and it's been taken out of context on social media, but it's not a question of if you're going to have a problem if you're fueling yourself with massive amounts of sugar. It's when and what form. And unfortunately, especially in endurance sports from half marathons up, a lot of people consider this stuff normal, and it's like, oh, I'm just getting older, and they've accepted this, whereas you've got people like Peter, who's in his 40s and winning races. You got Jeff, who's in his 50s and winning races, and I'm in 60s, but I'm not racing, but I'm metabolically fit, and so and we've got guys and gals in their 60s and 70s who are doing incredible things. I've got a gal in her mid 50s, 56, going to Challenge Roth in a couple of weeks to do the Challenge Roth Ironman, and she pulls and pushes her adult daughter in a handy. She's part of the Challenged Athletes Association, and she's completed an Ironman doing this. And
she has a handicapped daughter, right? She pushes in like a stroller.
Severely handicapped daughter, and then we've got a guy like Bart Smith, who's 75, who's running 50-mile races and 12-hour races and all kinds of things. So it's a great first step. So anybody can do it to help get that shift. And like I say, it doesn't matter where you are. If you're starting out, getting off the couch, like I say, getting off the couch and getting your first 5K is more of an endurance event than these clowns doing 50K.
True.
That's right.
We spend a lot of time doing our sport.
Yeah. But that person getting off the couch, getting to their first 5 or 10K, Vespa, like Jeff was describing what Nick was saying, it really is going to provide a much bigger marginal benefit for them than the incremental benefits we're now seeing by pushing that envelope.
Yeah.
And this is all, what we're doing is real science, meaning we're doing it in the real world and getting real results. This is our R&D team, and we're actually doing science. It's just not the published science, but it's the science you want, because are you a lab rat or are you in the real world?
I like observation,
Yeah.
part of science, like being on the front edge of it.
Right.
Like,
And this
thinking about it, like we talked about earlier, like having a hypothesis, testing the hypothesis, tinkering, I look at myself as a lab rat myself, like just testing things on, guinea pigging it out on myself. And then I have a few athletes who are very, that I coach, that are very open to like trying things and tinkering, and that's just their natural personality. And they've seen very similar things to what I've done. They tinker with diet, they tinker with, their nutrition and their nutritional strategies, and all of them use Vespa. And a majority of my athletes actually use Vespa, especially my Fat Adapted OFM athletes all use it. Once they get a hold of it and see it, they go, oh, okay, yeah, this works.
You have to experience it to get it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, and that's the thing.
It definitely doesn't make sense when you look at the label with the least of it's just so low in calories,
because it counters everything.
Yeah, because you're not trying to tap into a 100 calorie gel, right? You're trying to tap into your fat storage,
Right.
Tens of thousands of calories.
Yeah, that you have on board, and this is a one of those tools that helps you tap into that.
I would challenge anyone that's going out for just like whether it's a 5K or 8 to 10 mile run, where you would normally bring a gel with you or take it beforehand or whatever it is to eat breakfast, just go out empty, just take one of these and just see how you feel. And I guarantee you'll feel a lot better than you thought you would. You will go out there and you'll have more energy than you thought. You won't have that big spike, but like you normally would, but that sugar rush.
You won't have the crash either.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't have the
exactly.
resounding crash afterwards.
I remember, a lot of people I talked to, like they say, well, I didn't notice anything, and then we start talking more, and they said, they start realizing they weren't on the couch all afternoon, and they weren't sore the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really kind of subtle.
Yeah.
So like we say, it's a great first start, and check us out.